Stop a moment and think. How can something as simple as a hand gesture cause so much controversy? You've already used the OK sign to say that everything is fine, but what if I told you that this same gesture can be seen as a symbol of hate in some places? It's strange, right? How did this happen, and most importantly, what does this say about the power of symbols and how we use them? In today's video, I don't want you to just look at the images. I want you to listen carefully to every word I'm going to say. This gesture, which we all know and use, has a fascinating, incredible history. It is full of twists and turns. So, forget your surroundings for a moment and focus on what I'm going to tell you. Because at the end of this video, you won't see the OK sign the same way again. Let's go? Have you ever thought that a simple gesture like the OK sign can have such varied and, in some cases, even alarming meanings? For most people, the gesture of bringing the finger and finger together in a circle while the other fingers remain raised is universally understood as all is well, or that's right. However, in recent decades, especially in recent years, this gesture has been protected in some contexts by extremist groups, transforming its meaning into something completely different. In today's video, we'll explore the history of the OK sign, from its origins as a positive, universal gesture to its appropriation by certain groups who have distorted its meaning. Our goal here is to not only inform, but also raise awareness about how seemingly harmless symbols can be used to perpetuate hateful ideologies or misinformation. Why is talking about the OK sign important? In today's globalized and digital world, where communication happens quickly and across cultures, it is vital to understand the varied meanings of gestures. The OK sign in particular is a perfect example of how something so simple can cause confusion, controversy, or even offense depending on the context. While some people still use it in its original sense, others have associated it with white supremacist ideologies, a change that has occurred due to misinformation campaigns and use by extremist groups. Furthermore, this transformation of the OK sign serves as a powerful case study for understanding how symbols and gestures can be politicized, appropriated, and transformed into tools of manipulation. This is a crucial topic, especially as we seek to combat hate and misinformation in all its forms. At the end of this video, we will divide our analysis into several parts. Let's start with a historical journey, exploring how the OK sign came to be and its original meaning. Next, we will address how it was protected and turned into a symbol of hate by certain groups, and what are the motivations behind this change. We will discuss the social impacts of this transformation, including the debates and misunderstandings that arose around the gesture. Finally, we will reflect on the lessons we can learn from all this and how we can use knowledge to combat misinformation and prejudice. For starters, did you know that the OK sign is so versatile that it means completely different things depending on the culture? In many Western countries, it is a positive gesture, but in some places such as Brazil and Turkey, it can be considered offensive, associated with an insult. This shows how the meanings of gestures are shaped by cultural and historical context. Over the next few minutes, we'll dive deeper into the topic, exploring not only what the OK sign means, but also what it represents in today's world. Get ready to discover fascinating details and possibly change the way you view this seemingly harmless gesture. Origin and history of the OK sign. The OK sign has a rich and interesting history dating back centuries, being a universally expected expression of approval and understanding. However, to understand how it emerged and became so widespread, we need to analyze its linguistic, cultural, and symbolic origin. The origin of the term OK. The OK gesture is closely linked to the origin of the written and spoken expression OK. Many historians believe that OK originated in the United States in the early 19th century as a humorous abbreviation for all correct, a purposefully misspelling of all correct. The expression gained popularity during the 1840 presidential campaign of Martin Van Buren, who used OK as a political slogan. Van Buren was nicknamed Old Kinderhook, a reference to his hometown in New York, and OK became associated with his campaign. Over time, OK transcended its political roots and became one of the most recognized expressions around the world, achieving approval, agreement, or that something was right. The OK gesture, how did it come about? Although the term OK is widely documented, the exact origin of the gesture that represents it is less clear. It is believed to have evolved as a visual representation of the term. The circle formed by the search and index finger symbolizes the letter O, while the three other raised fingers resemble a K. This visual and symbolic association reinforces the connection between the gesture and the written word. The no-cane gesture began to be used in different cultural contexts as a quick, nonverbal way to communicate the message, all right, or understood. It was particularly useful in environments where verbal communication was difficult, such as diving, aviation, and sports. Adaptation in different cultures. Over the years, the OK gesture has been included globally, but its meanings have varied from culture to culture. Here are some examples. In the United States and most of Western Europe, the gesture has always been associated with a positive meaning, such as all right or I agree. Brazil. In Brazil, the gesture can be interpreted as offensive, representing a vulgar insult related to the anus. Turkey and the Middle East. In some Middle Eastern countries, the gesture is also considered an insult, indicating something disrespectful or offensive. Japan. In Japan, the gesture can symbolize money or wealth, due to the shape of the circle that resembles a coin. These varied meanings stand out as the cultural context shapes the perception of simple gestures, something that would later contribute to their appropriation in new scenarios. Gesture in nonverbal context. The no-cane gesture has also become indispensable in situations where verbal communication is not possible. For example, diving. It is widely used to indicate that everything is fine as other forms of communication are limited underwater. Aviation. Pilots and flight crews often use the gesture to confirm information visually, especially in high-noise conditions. Body language. In everyday communication, the go-cane gesture conveys confidence and clarity, being widely used by speakers, presenters, and leaders. The gesture in popular culture. During the 20th century, the go-cane gesture gained prominence in popular culture, being portrayed in films, TV series, and advertisements. Its simplicity and universality have made it a widely accepted and easily understood gesture. Some public figures, such as politicians and celebrities, also helped to popularize it. A notable example is its use by Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse, who frequently performed the gesture in cartoons, reinforcing its association with positive, family-friendly messages. Gesture as a symbol of inclusion. Before being protected by extremist groups, something we will discuss in the next part, the go-cane gesture also had inclusive connotations. It has been adopted into sign languages as a universal gesture to convey positive messages. In American Sign Language (ASL), for example, the gesture is used to express OK directly and clearly. Summary of early evolution. The no-cane sign began as a simple, functional gesture, gaining global popularity due to its connection to spoken and written language. Its universal meaning and its application in different cultural and professional contexts have made it a symbol of understanding and positivity. However, this story began to change drastically in recent years, when extremist groups took it up with very different interest. In the next section, we will explore how the gesture was protected and transformed into a controversial symbol. Appropriation and modern context of the OK sign. The OK sign, once a gesture universally understood as a symbol of approval and positivity, has undergone a significant transformation in recent decades. This change was driven by disinformation campaigns, ideological appropriations, and strategic use by extremist groups. In this section, we will explore how the gesture was distorted, the reasons behind this appropriation, and the impact it has had on our society. The appropriation of the gesture by extremist groups. The recent history of the transformation of the no-cane sign is directly linked to disinformation campaigns originating on internet platforms such as 4chan. In 2017, users of this forum began coordinated trolling with the aim of associating the gesture with white supremacist ideology. The plan was simple. It conveyed the idea that the no-cane gesture represented the letters W and P, forming the abbreviation for white power. In the gesture, the fingers indicate and create an O, while the remaining three fingers, when raised, suggest a W. Although it was initially a joke designed to confuse and provoke exaggerated reactions, the campaign quickly spiraled out of control. Genuine extremist groups began adopting the no-cane gesture as a symbol, cementing their association with hateful ideologies. What began as a disinformation and provocation tactic has become an alarming reality. Notable cases of gesture use. The Christchurch shooter, 2019. One of the most striking and worrying moments of this association occurred during the trial of the Christchurch shooters, in New Zealand. He used the no-cane gesture in a context that clearly alluded to white supremacy, cementing the symbol as a marker of hate for many. White supremacy protests and marches. During events such as the Unite the Right March in Charlottesville, USA, participants were seen using the no-cane gesture, reinforcing their connection to racist ideologies. Online platforms. Users in extremist communities continued to use the gesture in photos and memes, amplifying its association with hateful messages. Why did extremist groups adopt the OK gesture? The appropriation of apparently harmless gestures and symbols is nothing new among extremist groups. There is a strategic logic behind this. Normalize ideologies of hate. Adopting simple, universal gestures makes it easier to infiltrate hateful messages into everyday speech without arousing immediate suspicion. Confuse and divide. Associating the OK gesture with white supremacy creates an environment of confusion, where people are unsure how to interpret the gesture. This can lead to overreactions or disagreements, which extremist groups use as evidence of excessive sensitivity on the part of their opponents. Recruitment and communication. The no cane gesture also serves as a discreet signal between members of extremist groups, allowing them to publicly recognize each other without fully exposing themselves. Public reaction and impact. The transformation of the OK sign generated a wide public occurrence, dividing opinions about its meaning. Civil rights organizations. Groups like the Anti-Defamation League (ADL) have added the OK gesture to their database of hate symbols, but with caveats. The ADL emphasizes that context is essential in determining the intention of the gesture. Not every use of the OK sign should automatically be interpreted as extremist. Media and social networks. Media coverage of the appropriation of the gesture helped raise awareness, but also amplified its negative association, generating fear and confusion. Common people. Many continue to use the OK gesture in its original positive context, but sometimes face criticism or misunderstanding, especially in more controversy-conscious environments. Cases of misunderstandings. The ambiguity surrounding the no cane gesture led to embarrassing and, at times, unfair situations. Unfair suspensions. In 2019, an employee at a baseball stadium in the United States was suspended for using the no cane gesture in a live broadcast. Although he claimed the gesture was innocent, the controversy was proven in its temporary removal. Video game players. In online games, the use of the gesture as a swearer has become common, often confusing moderators and viewers who are unfamiliar with the controversy. The OK sign dichotomy, positive or negative. The OK sign is now in cultural limbo. It represents two things simultaneously depending on the context. Original meaning, a positive, universal and widely understood gesture. Proper meaning, a symbol of white supremacy or extremist provocation. This issue raises important questions about the role of context and intention in interpreting gestures and symbols. The role of social media in spreading new meaning. Social media has played a crucial role in spreading the negative association of the OK gesture. Going viral. Memes and online campaigns amplified the message, making it difficult to distinguish between jokes and genuine uses. Recommendation algorithms. Platforms such as Twitter and Facebook help disseminate images and videos that reinforce the connection between the gesture and extremist ideologies. This raises important questions about the responsibility of digital platforms to moderate content and combat misinformation. Responsibility for interpretation and use. One of the biggest challenges surrounding the no cane gesture is determining how it should be handled going forward. Some key questions include: how to educate the public about the double meaning of the gesture? When is it safe to use and when should it be avoided? How can we avoid criminalizing or condemning people who use the gesture innocently? These issues are complex ones that require ongoing dialogue between educators, civil rights organizations, and the general public. The no cane sign is a fascinating and worrying example of how symbols can be turned into tools of manipulation and disinformation. The appropriation of the gesture by extremist groups highlights the importance of understanding the context and intention behind any symbolic communication. Current debate and social impact of the OK sign. The transformation of the no cane sign from a positive gesture to a controversial symbol generated intense debates and significant impacts on society. This chapter explores the implications of this change in different social, cultural, and political contexts. We will discuss the misunderstandings, discussions about public meaning, and the challenges faced in trying to reverse or reinterpret the meaning of this gesture. The debate over intent and context. One of the biggest controversies surrounding the no cane sign is a difficulty in determining the intention behind the use of the gesture. Positive context. Many people continue to use the no cane gesture in its original sense, as a sign of approval or to say everything is fine. Extremist context. White supremacist and extremist groups have used the gesture as a discrete symbol to express their ideologies. This duality can create a significant challenge, especially in public and professional spaces, where gesture is interpreted in very different ways. Example: a speaker may use the gesture to promote a positive message, but the audience may interpret it as a hate symbol of the context and local awareness of the controversial meaning. Impact on everyday life. The appropriation of the OK sign has also affected the way it is perceived and used in daily interactions. Common misunderstandings. People who use the gesture innocently sometimes face criticism or are viewed with suspicion. In international environments where the gesture already had varied meanings, the confusion increased even more. Gesture avoidance. Some people have started to avoid using the OK sign altogether so as not to risk being misunderstood. This is particularly evident in public speeches, where body language is carefully monitored. Institutional and corporate reactions. Companies, organizations and institutions face challenges when dealing with the use of the OK gesture in their daily operations. Internal policies. Many companies have guidelines on the use of gestures in work environments, especially in public-specific sectors. Example. In 2019, Disney announced that employees disguised as characters at theme parks were instructed to avoid the OK gesture to minimize the possibility of controversy. Diversity and inclusion trainings. Organizations are incorporating information about the OK gesture into diversity training to raise awareness and avoid misinterpretations. Discussions in the media and social networks. The media played a crucial role in spreading information and misinformation about the meaning of the OK sign. Coverage of specific cases. The incidents that occurred during the gesture were widely covered in the press, amplifying awareness but also perpetuating confusion. In some cases, the media was criticized for interpreting the gesture out of context, contributing to moral panic. Influence of social networks. On social media, the gesture continues to be destroyed. Posts that use the OK gesture often go viral, generating heated posts. Hashtags like #OKSign and #SymbolOfHate are used both by people trying to educate the public and extremist groups promoting misinformation. Famous misunderstandings. Several incidents gained prominence, highlighting the ambiguity of the gesture. Wrigley Field Stadium case, 2019. During a live broadcast of a baseball game, a viewer used the OK gesture while appearing on camera. Stadium staff made the gesture a reference to white supremacy and banned spectators, sparking heated debates over whether the decision was fair. Police and military. In 2020, a photo of American police officers using the OK gesture during protests sparked outrage. It was later clarified that the gesture was a common practice to signal that insurance was available. The educational role in society. To address the ambiguity surrounding the OK sign, educating the public has become essential. Civil rights organizations. Groups like the Anti-Defamation League (ADL) emphasize that context is key to interpreting the gesture. Not every use of the OK sign should automatically be associated with hate. Public education. Efforts to educate about the historical and current significance of the gesture can help reduce misunderstandings. Information campaigns can address how and why symbols and gestures are protected by extremist ideologies. The question of reappropriation. One of the most complex debates surrounding the OK sign is whether it can be reappropriated and restored to its original, positive meaning. Possibility of reappropriation. Some believe that the OK gesture can still be salvaged as long as its positive use is consistently promoted. Cultural leaders and influencers can play an important role in this process, helping to redefine the meaning of the gesture. Difficulties in reappropriation. Association with extremist ideologies is difficult to eliminate, especially due to widespread media coverage and continued use by hate groups. The OK sign has become a symbol of controversy and misunderstanding, reflecting how simple gestures can be turned into tools of manipulation and division. The impact of this transformation is evident in our daily lives, in the professional environment and in online discussions. However, the debate surrounding the gesture also offers an opportunity to educate, raise awareness and promote the responsible use of symbolic language. In the next and final part, we will discuss the lessons we can learn from this controversy and how to move forward in the fight against misinformation and hate. Historical lessons and reflections on the OK sign. The controversy surrounding the OK sign is not just a story about how a simple gesture has been distorted. It's also a reminder of how symbols and nonverbal communication play a crucial role in society. In this final section, we will reflect on the lessons we can learn from this transformation and discuss how to move forward in the fight against misinformation, prejudice, and the misuse of symbols. The fragility of universal symbols. The history of the OK sign highlights how even the most universally recognized symbols can be transformed. Neutrality is an illusion. No symbol is completely safe from being protected by movements or ideologies. The transformation of the OK gesture shows how culture is malleable and how symbols can be quickly reinterpreted. The need for cultural surveillance. It is up to societies to monitor the use of symbols and gestures, ensuring that they are used in a way that promotes unity rather than division. The importance of context. A central lesson is that the meaning of a symbol or gesture is not fixed, but depends on the context and intention behind its use. Cultural interpretation. In different cultures, the OK sign already had different meanings before being protected by extremist groups. This highlights how the interpretation of gestures is deeply influenced by cultural factors. The danger of generalization. Not every use of the OK sign should automatically be associated with hate or extremism. Intent and context need to be carefully evaluated before making any judgment. The role of social media in amplifying messages. Social media has played a central role in transforming the OK sign. They accelerated the spread of misinformation and helped cement the gesture as a controversial symbol. Memes and virality. The use of memes to propagate the gesture's association with white supremacy demonstrates the power of digital platforms and cultural manipulation. Platforms' responsibility. Tech companies have an increasing responsibility to monitor and moderate content to prevent gestures or symbols from being used to promote hateful ideologies. Lessons on disinformation. The controversy surrounding the OK sign is also a clear example of how disinformation campaigns can shape public perception. Disinformation tactics. The initial campaign on 4chan was designed to confuse and divide. Its effectiveness highlights the need for greater media and critical literacy. Proactive responses. Educational institutions and media organizations must empower the public to identify and respond to disinformation tactics while avoiding falling into cultural or political traps. Symbols as social mirrors. Symbols often reflect the conflicts of a society. The case of the OK sign is a microcosm of broader cultural and political divisions. Cultural polarization. The appropriation of the gesture reflects a growing polarization in many societies, where even simple gestures become grounds for ideological battle. The importance of dialogue. Promoting open and respectful discussions about the use of symbols can help reduce misunderstandings and build bridges between different perspectives. Paths to advance. To combat misinformation and prevent symbols and gestures from being distorted, it is necessary to adopt a proactive and collaborative approach. Continuing education. Incorporating lessons about nonverbal communication, cultural history, and misinformation into school curricula can help create more critical and aware citizens. Awareness campaigns. Civil rights organizations and governments can lead efforts to educate the public about the meaning of symbols and gestures, highlighting the importance of context. Reappropriation and resignification. Encouraging positive and original use of the OK sign can help restore its universal meaning. The individual role in cultural preservation. Each person has a role to play in preserving the positive meaning of symbols and gestures. Conscientious use. Before using a gesture like the OK sign, consider the audience, context, and possible interpretations. Discourage hate. Denouncing and condemning the use of symbols as tools of hate is essential to combat their appropriation. Symbols and the power of education. The case of the OK sign teaches us that the cultural history of gestures and symbols is as important as the words we use. Just as verbal language can be distorted, gestures can also be manipulated, carrying messages that we have not previously conveyed to them. However, knowledge is the key to overcoming these challenges. With education, dialogue, and a critical approach, we can preserve the richness of symbols and prevent them from being used to divide. Today, we explore the history, transformation, and impact of the OK sign. This simple gesture, once a symbol of universality and approval, has become a powerful example of how symbols can be misused and misused. Now it's your turn to act. Leave your opinion. Do you believe that the OK gesture can be reappropriated? Share the video, help spread knowledge and make more people aware of this topic. Subscribe to the channel. For more educational videos like this, subscribe and turn on notifications.